It began with a quiet exchange deep inside Buckingham Palace, one reportedly so tense that even senior aides avoided discussing it openly afterward. Prince Harry's request to wear his military medals during the Coronation Anniversary Reception was, according to palace insiders, expected to be approved quietly, out of respect for optics and family unity. But then came the decision that stunned royal circles. King Charles himself had allegedly intervened, and within hours, whispers of humiliation, betrayal, and royal punishment began spreading across the firm. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, many inside palace circles reportedly assumed the matter would never become controversial. After all, Prince Harry's military service had long remained one of the few areas where even critics of the Duke of Sussex still acknowledged genuine dedication and sacrifice. According to royal commentators, aides initially believed granting permission for the medals during the anniversary reception would help project at least the appearance of family stability during an increasingly fragile chapter for the monarchy. But insiders whisper that behind closed doors, the situation quickly evolved into something far more explosive than a simple wardrobe approval. Reports suggest Harry personally requested permission to wear the ceremonial medals as part of the reception marking the anniversary of King Charles's coronation, an event already layered with emotional symbolism and institutional tension. Yet, according to palace administrative streams, senior advisors immediately became divided over how the request should be handled. Some allegedly feared denying Harry would create another public relations disaster capable of reigniting accusations of cruelty and exclusion surrounding the royal family. Others reportedly argued the monarchy had already blurred too many boundaries regarding the distinction between working and non-working royals. And in the center of that growing storm stood King Charles himself, visibly torn between public duty and private fatherhood. Then came the intervention that reportedly changed everything. Palace insiders claimed Charles personally blocked the request after a series of tense consultations involving senior courtiers and constitutional advisors. Different interpretations of those meetings describe an atmosphere filled with anxiety, exhaustion, and quiet frustration. Since early 2024, the king had already been navigating enormous physical and emotional strain tied to his health challenges and the growing pressures surrounding the crown's future. According to insiders, Charles feared the medals issue risked undermining the monarchy's increasingly strict efforts to redefine who officially represented the institution publicly after years of internal turmoil. Prince William reportedly supported maintaining strict royal protocol throughout the discussions, a detail that allegedly intensified already fragile tensions between the brothers. Sources close to palace operations whisper that William believed consistency had become essential for the monarchy's survival, particularly after years marked by public family fractures, explosive interviews, and growing distrust behind palace walls. To William's supporters, allowing Harry to appear in full ceremonial honours at such a significant royal function while remaining outside official royal duties would allegedly send a deeply confusing message about accountability, loyalty, and institutional boundaries. Comparisons were soon drawn to similar tensions during the final years of Queen Elizabeth II's reign, when palace officials reportedly struggled repeatedly over how to balance family compassion with royal discipline. Royal commentators suggest the monarchy learned painful lessons from those years, particularly regarding public perception and the dangers of appearing indecisive during moments of internal conflict. And according to several insiders, the rejection of Harry's request symbolized something far deeper than ceremonial protocol. It reflected a monarchy increasingly willing to prioritize structure over sentiment, even when the emotional consequences threatened to deepen already devastating family wounds. As whispers of the decision spread through royal and media circles, reactions reportedly became immediate and deeply divided. Some viewed the move as unnecessarily harsh toward a prince who had once represented the monarchy proudly on the global stage. Others believed the palace was finally enforcing the kind of institutional boundaries that had weakened repeatedly in recent years. But according to those closest to palace operations, The conflict was never truly about medals, it was about loyalty, legacy, and who still had the right to represent the crown publicly. To the public, the dispute may have seemed minor, another royal disagreement destined to dominate headlines for a few days before fading away. But insiders whisper the medals carried enormous symbolic weight inside the monarchy itself. Within palace tradition, ceremonial decorations are not merely personal honors. They represent service, sacrifice, institutional loyalty, and continued connection to the sovereign. And according to several interpretations emerging afterward, that was precisely why the situation became so explosive. Inside Buckingham Palace, advisors reportedly viewed the entire issue through a far more serious and unforgiving lens than the public initially understood. Sources close to royal operations claim medal protocol has long been treated almost as sacred symbolism within the institution, particularly during events tied directly to the coronation and the continuity of the crown itself. To outsiders, medals may appear ceremonial, decorative, even outdated. But within the rigid architecture of royal tradition, they allegedly represent something much deeper, a visible acknowledgement that the individual wearing them still stands fully within the service structure of the monarchy. And according to palace insiders, that reality placed Harry's request directly at the center of an increasingly dangerous constitutional and emotional conflict. Questions reportedly emerged almost immediately regarding Harry's role after stepping away from official royal duties years earlier. Royal commentators across Britain allegedly debated whether a prince who had publicly distanced himself from the institution could still appear in full ceremonial symbolism during one of the monarchy's most significant anniversary receptions. Some insiders argued the request was understandable given Harry's military history and personal attachment to his service record. Others reportedly believed allowing it would blur boundaries the palace had spent years painfully trying to reinforce after repeated public controversies, interviews, memoir revelations, and growing fractures within the family itself. According to palace administrative streams, King Charles found himself under pressure from multiple royal factions during the discussions. Some senior figures allegedly urged reconciliation, fearing the monarchy appeared increasingly cold and emotionally divided in the eyes of the public. But another faction reportedly warned the king that making exceptions tied to ceremonial symbolism risked weakening the institution's authority during one of the most delicate periods of his reign. Since early 2024, Charles had already faced mounting concerns surrounding health, succession planning, and public confidence in the monarchy's long-term stability. Insiders whisper that advisors repeatedly warned him the crown could no longer survive prolonged confusion over who officially represented the institution and who did not. Prince William reportedly emerged as one of the strongest voices favoring strict consistency on protocol. Sources close to palace operations claim William believed the monarchy had already suffered enormous damage through years of perceived indecision and emotional compromise. To him, insiders suggest, the issue was not about punishing Harry personally, but about protecting the integrity of the institution itself. If ceremonial honours could still be publicly displayed by royals no longer carrying official responsibilities, then according to some advisors, the distinction between working and non-working members of the family would begin collapsing entirely before the public eye. Royal historians quickly began comparing the controversy to earlier restrictions imposed during Queen Elizabeth II's final years, when difficult decisions surrounding appearances, uniforms, titles, and ceremonial privileges reportedly caused similar internal tensions. Palace insiders whisper that the late Queen often viewed such moments not through emotion, but through institutional consequence. And according to several royal commentators, Charles now appeared trapped inside the same painful dilemma his mother faced repeatedly: how to preserve family relationships, while simultaneously defending the structure of the monarchy from gradual erosion. As the reception drew closer, the controversy reportedly transformed into something much larger than a disagreement over ceremonial medals. It became a test of institutional authority itself. Every decision carried consequences. Every compromise risked backlash from either the public or the palace. And according to those closest to the unfolding crisis, the deeper fear haunting Buckingham Palace was not simply another round of damaging headlines. It was the growing realization that the monarchy had entered an era where even symbolic gestures could trigger devastating emotional and political consequences inside the House of Windsor. Yet as palace officials debated rules, optics, and royal precedent, Harry himself was reportedly growing increasingly frustrated behind the scenes. Reports suggest the rejection landed harder on Harry than many palace insiders initially expected. Those close to royal operations whisper that the prince viewed the medals not simply as ceremonial decorations, but as part of his military identity, one of the last remaining connections to a role that once gave him public respect, structure, and purpose. And when word allegedly reached him that the request had been denied personally by the king, the emotional fallout reportedly became impossible to contain quietly. According to insiders familiar with the atmosphere surrounding the Coronation Anniversary Reception, Harry allegedly experienced the decision not as a matter of protocol, but as something deeply personal and emotionally devastating. For years, royal commentators have suggested that military service remained one of the few areas of Harry's life untouched by the bitterness, controversy, and public division that later consumed his relationship with the monarchy. Within the armed forces, he had reportedly found discipline, identity, and a sense of belonging separate from palace hierarchy. And insiders whisper that losing the ability to publicly wear the medals during such a symbolic royal occasion felt, to Harry, like losing one more visible connection to the life he once believed was permanently his. Sources close to palace operations claim tensions between Harry and Prince William reportedly intensified almost immediately afterward. Though communication between the brothers had allegedly remained fragile for years, insiders suggest this particular dispute reopened emotional wounds neither side had ever fully resolved. William reportedly viewed the issue through the cold lens of institutional responsibility, believing the monarchy could not survive if personal emotion repeatedly overruled royal structure. Harry, however, was rumoured to see the situation entirely differently. According to several interpretations emerging afterward, he allegedly believed he was being erased piece by piece from the institution he had once defended publicly with absolute loyalty. Meghan reportedly became increasingly frustrated as the controversy escalated quietly behind the scenes. Palace commentators whisper that she viewed the restrictions surrounding Harry's public royal role as part of a broader pattern of exclusion and humiliation that had followed the couple since stepping away from official duties. Sources suggest advisors on both sides feared the medals dispute could easily trigger another wave of explosive media coverage, especially given the emotional symbolism attached to Harry's military identity. Some insiders even claimed palace aides became deeply concerned another public statement, interview, or indirect response might emerge if tensions continued escalating privately. And perhaps that fear was not entirely unfounded, because according to royal experts, the rejection reportedly reinforced a growing emotional reality surrounding Harry himself, one rooted not only in physical separation from the monarchy, but in an increasing sense of disconnection from royal identity altogether. Over time, commentators suggest Harry's relationship with the institution had shifted from painful frustration into something far more complicated. Uncertainty over where he truly belonged. Was he still part of the royal family in any meaningful sense beyond blood itself? Or had the monarchy quietly decided that loyalty to the institution now outweighed every remaining emotional tie connecting him to it? Several insiders reportedly described the blocked medals request as a symbolic closing of doors, language that quickly spread through royal media circles because of how brutally final it sounded. Not a public exile, not an official punishment, but something quieter, and perhaps even more devastating, a gradual stripping away of symbolic connection until the distance between Harry and the monarchy no longer appeared temporary at all. Reports suggest even some senior courtiers privately worried the emotional consequences of these repeated institutional boundaries could deepen divisions inside the family beyond repair. Yet despite the emotional turmoil surrounding Harry's reaction, Buckingham Palace reportedly remained focused on something far larger than one prince's anger or disappointment. Behind closed doors, advisors allegedly feared the monarchy itself stood at a dangerous crossroads where even small symbolic concessions could weaken public understanding of duty, hierarchy, and royal responsibility during one of the institution's most fragile modern eras. But inside Buckingham Palace, senior figures reportedly believed the monarchy itself faced a far greater danger than temporary family anger. For King Charles, insiders claim the decision represented one of the most emotionally painful moments of his reign so far. Reports suggest the king remained deeply torn between private fatherhood and public duty, particularly during a period already overshadowed by illness, exhaustion, and growing uncertainty surrounding the monarchy's future. Yet according to palace administrative streams, Charles ultimately concluded that allowing Harry to wear the medals risked blurring a line the institution could no longer afford to weaken. Behind the cold language of protocol and ceremonial rules, palace insiders whisper there was a far more human struggle unfolding quietly inside Buckingham Palace itself. According to several royal commentators, Charles never stopped viewing Harry as his son, regardless of the growing emotional and institutional distance separating them. And that was precisely what made the decision so devastating. Sources close to royal operations claim the king reportedly spent days wrestling privately with the emotional consequences before the final response was delivered. Some advisors allegedly warned him that blocking the request would deepen public perceptions of division and cruelty inside the House of Windsor. Others insisted the monarchy's survival now depended on establishing boundaries that could no longer be softened by emotion alone. Since early 2024, Charles had reportedly carried enormous personal strain, while simultaneously trying to project continuity and calm during one of the crown's most fragile modern periods. Palace insiders suggest the king increasingly understood that every royal appearance, every symbolic gesture, and every public decision now carried amplified meaning because of growing questions surrounding succession and the monarchy's future direction. Within that atmosphere, the medals controversy allegedly became something much larger than a family disagreement. According to sources familiar with internal discussions, advisors feared allowing Harry to wear the ceremonial honours during such a significant royal event could create confusion about his status within the institution itself. Protocol advisors reportedly remained firm throughout the consultations. Palace administrative streams claim several senior figures argued strongly in favour of blocking the request, warning Charles that exceptions tied to ceremonial symbolism would weaken years of careful efforts to redefine the monarchy after repeated public controversies. To them, insiders whisper, the issue was not Harry's military service or personal sacrifice. It was the public meaning attached to those medals during a Coronation Anniversary celebration centred entirely on the continuity of the sovereign and the official structure of the crown. Prince William reportedly supported that position with equal determination. Sources close to palace operations suggest William believed protecting institutional consistency had become essential, even when doing so created devastating emotional consequences within the family itself. Royal commentators claim the Prince of Wales increasingly viewed the monarchy through the same unforgiving lens once associated with Queen Elizabeth II, a belief that duty to the institution must ultimately come before private emotion, personal history, or even blood relationships when the stability of the crown is at stake. Comparisons to the late Queen reportedly surfaced repeatedly behind closed doors during the controversy. Palace insiders whisper that Charles found himself haunted by memories of the difficult decisions Elizabeth was forced to make during her final years, moments when family pain collided directly with institutional responsibility. Different interpretations of those discussions suggest Charles understood something painful that his mother had learned long before him. The monarchy rarely rewards emotional compromise, especially during periods of instability. And according to royal commentators, the medals dispute may have become one of the clearest examples yet of how dramatically the structure of the monarchy itself is changing under mounting public pressure. The deeper fear reportedly centered on public confusion surrounding royal identity and representation. Advisors allegedly worried that allowing Harry to appear in ceremonial honours while remaining outside official royal duties would undermine the increasingly strict distinction between working and non-working members of the family. For years, the monarchy survived through carefully maintained symbolism, but insiders claim Charles now believed even symbolic uncertainty carried dangerous consequences for the institution's credibility during an era already defined by division, scrutiny, and declining public trust. And while the palace attempted to project calm and unity publicly, reactions behind closed doors reportedly became increasingly volatile. As news of the blocked request quietly spread through royal and media circles, reports suggest old divisions inside the monarchy resurfaced almost instantly. Supporters of Harry allegedly viewed the decision as unnecessarily cold and humiliating, while defenders of the palace argued the crown had already compromised too much in recent years. What began as a protocol dispute soon evolved into something far more dangerous: a battle over accountability, public symbolism, and the monarchy's right to defend its own boundaries. Inside Buckingham Palace, sources whisper the atmosphere reportedly became tense almost overnight. Palace households were allegedly divided sharply over the controversy, with some aides privately fearing the decision would deepen public sympathy for Harry at a moment when royal unity already appeared dangerously fragile. Others, however, reportedly believed the monarchy had reached a breaking point after years of emotional concessions, public controversy, and blurred institutional boundaries. According to royal commentators, the medals dispute suddenly reopened the larger question that had haunted the crown since Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties. What exactly did it still mean to be royal without actively serving the monarchy itself? Public debate surrounding Harry's royal status reportedly intensified across Britain and abroad within hours. Some viewed the rejection as cruel and unnecessarily symbolic, especially given Harry's military background and long public association with service. Others argued the palace had no choice if it wanted to preserve the distinction between working and non-working royals before the public eye. But insiders whisper the real concern inside the institution was never simply media backlash. It was the fear that inconsistency surrounding royal representation could slowly weaken public understanding of the monarchy's structure during one of its most uncertain periods in decades. In the days following the controversy, royal commentators reportedly reached a strikingly similar conclusion. The blocked medals request was never only about ceremonial dress. It was a message about hierarchy, duty, consequences, and the monarchy's determination to redefine itself during a fragile period of transition. And according to insiders, that message was intended not only for Harry but for the entire institution watching anxiously from within palace walls. Reports suggest King Charles increasingly came to be viewed as prioritizing institutional survival over personal emotion, a painful shift many insiders believe reflects the harsh realities now shaping his reign. Prince William reportedly stood at the center of those changes, pushing for a monarchy built on stricter boundaries, reduced ambiguity, and clearer definitions surrounding public royal duty. Palace insiders even described a streamlined monarchy already taking form quietly behind the scenes, one where symbolism, discipline, and accountability mattered more than preserving emotional appearances of unity at all costs. At the same time, William and Catherine reportedly emerged more clearly than ever as the future center of the institution itself. Royal experts claim the controversy reinforced public understanding of who officially represents the crown moving forward, and who no longer does. According to commentators, the monarchy now appears to be entering a colder and more disciplined era, one less driven by sentiment, and far more focused on survival during a period overshadowed by illness, succession pressure, and declining public trust. And perhaps that is why the emotional impact of the controversy reached so deeply across royal circles. Because beneath the headlines, beneath the medals, and beneath the protocol arguments, insiders whisper the monarchy was confronting a far more painful truth about itself. The House of Windsor was no longer simply managing a family disagreement. It was redefining the boundaries of belonging itself. Because in the end, the medals themselves were never the true issue. The real battle was over whether the monarchy still believed duty must come before personal history. For many royal watchers, the image that lingered after the Coronation Anniversary Reception was not one of celebration, tradition, or ceremony. It was the quiet absence surrounding Prince Harry himself. Reports suggest the controversy left behind a lingering emotional wound that neither palace silence nor public diplomacy could fully erase. And according to several royal commentators, that absence may ultimately become one of the defining emotional symbols of Charles's reign. The Coronation Anniversary Reception may have lasted only one evening, but according to palace insiders, the decisions surrounding Harry's medals could shape royal relationships for years to come. What unfolded behind palace walls revealed a monarchy entering a colder and more disciplined chapter 1, where symbolism matters more than sentiment, and where personal pain increasingly takes second place to institutional survival. Reports suggest Harry is now increasingly viewed not simply as physically distant from the monarchy, but emotionally separated from the institution that once defined nearly every part of his public identity. Royal experts whisper that reconciliation between Harry and the senior members of the family appears more difficult than ever, particularly as trust reportedly becomes the monarchy's central concern moving forward. Public reaction to the controversy remained deeply divided across Britain and abroad. Some viewed Harry as a prince, unfairly pushed further away from his family, despite years of military service and sacrifice. Others argued the palace had no remaining choice if it wanted to preserve the boundaries surrounding public royal representation during a period already overshadowed by uncertainty and instability. At the center of the emotional fallout stood the fractured relationship between William and Harry themselves. Palace insiders claim the distance between the brothers has now evolved beyond ordinary disagreement into something far more painful and difficult to repair. According to several commentators, the medals controversy only reinforced a growing reality inside the House of Windsor, that the monarchy is no longer operating primarily through personal relationships, but through institutional survival. And in that colder environment, even family bonds can become secondary to the demands of duty, structure, and public symbolism. Royal commentators increasingly describe the crown as entering a new era of controlled discipline under King Charles, one shaped by strict boundaries and difficult decisions designed to protect the monarchy's long-term stability. William and Catherine reportedly stand at the center of that future, viewed by insiders as the institution's strongest remaining source of continuity and public trust. But as the monarchy becomes more rigid about who officially represents the crown, Harry's own role inside royal life appears increasingly uncertain. Some insiders even describe the controversy as a warning about the emotional and symbolic cost of stepping away from the royal fold itself. And perhaps that is why the emotional impact of the reception continues echoing far beyond Buckingham Palace. Because long after the headlines faded, the deeper meaning of the controversy reportedly remained impossible to ignore. The medals dispute was never only about ceremony. It became a lasting symbol of fracture, sacrifice, and the painful transformation of a monarchy struggling to survive an era of division from within. Because long after the reception ended and the headlines faded, one truth reportedly remained impossible for the monarchy to escape. Inside the House of Windsor, loyalty may still matter, but duty matters more. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.